Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the original Loretta Brown Show radio to open the heart, heal the soul, awaken the consciousness. Good morning, Mr. Benny Mathers.
Top of the morning to you, or depending on where you are in this planet.
Yeah, top of the morning to you. I haven't had my coffee yet, Benny. What's going on?
Why not? What's going on over there? Are you okay?
No,
Do you have a fever?
I don't
All right.
know.
Well, you need...
I think it should just come up and wake me up and say, hi, here's a nice cup of coffee right there.
Like you need an assistant. Is that what you're saying? Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's a coffee assistant, right?
Okay. I see. Well, we're gonna have to talk to the big boys for the budget on that one.
Yeah, we are. So quite the week going on here.
Yeah, know? Right.
Yeah.
There was a little bit of a debate going on a few days ago. That kind of has been settling a little bit. We have Apple Cup this weekend for Washington State and University of Washington. It's played here locally in Seattle this year, so good luck to them. I'm kind of biased. Go Cougs. We aren't expected to win. I think that's kind of normal, but we pulled off some good ones in the past. So I'm thinking, we got a chance this year.
I'm going to put good vibes out for that, right?
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's historically, you guys are not really expected
to
win, but hey,
we're like the little brother and the big brother fighting it out every year. That's usually what we do. So, yeah. But I've got to add a little bit of just love just because I can.
Okay.
There. That's just only the way I want to set the day, set the tone for the show.
I love it. A cougar.
Yeah.
There you go.
Get it.
I want that to play at the game.
I think you want the lion one. That's the
Yeah, I like the lion one.
You like the lion one, this one.
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
A little more menacing.
Yeah. As opposed to, puppies. I did say that. Sorry.
There's nothing wrong with a puppy. Everyone loves a puppy.
I love puppies. Yeah, for sure.
But, and then also Friday the 13th is tomorrow.
Yes. Thank you. I was going to bring that up. Right.
Okay. So I won't say anymore.
Oh, no. That's all I was going to say about it. I didn't really put it. Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah.
Are you superstitious?
You're all good. No, not at all.
At all? I feel like I have a small percentage of them that I am, but I can't really figure out which one. Like yesterday, I was up on the roof cleaning the gutters, typical guy thing to do on the roof of the house, whatever. Not really.
Yeah.
I set the ladder and I looked at it and I looked like I had that moment. Do I walk under it? I'm like, no. I pulled away. So there's a small percentage of me there, but other things, a broken mirror and stuff like that that happens. And what else are you supposed to do about it? Clean it up.
I think, I'm going to join you in that one because I do the same thing. Like, if there's a ladder, I don't walk under it. Like, for instance, like if a black cat crosses your path, I don't care.
Or step on your mama's back or break your mom's back. Or like, really? I don't think about that one either because black cats are all over.
On a crack. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So some of that stuff, but I'm not horribly superstitious like some people. Like you say, if they break a mirror or something, they're like, uh-oh.
Yeah. I just don't like spiders. That's the only thing I do.
Oh, no. No. I had a big boy in the sink the other day, just kind of hanging out there. And I mean big. Like I went to turn it on and I went.
Like one of those like wolf. They're like wolf spiders.
Yeah, that's exactly. It's exactly what it was. Yeah, it has been relocated.
Yeah, anyway. Good.
It was a squatter. No squatting.
Get
in the
them
sink.
out of here.
Big as the sink.
They're not paying rent. Get out.
Cut out. Yeah, that's it. So lots of stuff going on, totally. And the debate this week, and we're going to be watching that, right? We've got a couple of months, and anything could happen, really.
Yeah,
really.
I just want to stress an opinion on just let's vote. That's all. You choose, and you have the right to do it. Let's get out there and make it happen. That's all I want to hear.
Thank you.
That's all I want to say.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm saying the same thing. Please vote. So many times I have people say, "Oh, my vote doesn't matter." I go, "Yes, it does."
What was it? The Public Lands Commission.
Yes.
Did you hear about that here in Seattle? Came down to like a 50 vote recount. It was a recount already. This is after the recount. It was like down to 49 votes that determine the winner. It's like it can be that close. So your vote matters.
Yeah, that's interesting. I was watching the thing about the land commissioner. So yeah, don't, like, I think the problem is that, people are like, my vote doesn't count. And pretty soon,
not true.
5,000 people have said my vote doesn't count, and it does count. So
Very
anyway,
true.
we've hammered that enough.
Yeah, let's go. Bye-bye.
Yeah, let's go. Anyway, so I am the owner of Reiki Oasis, located right here in the greater Seattle area. You can find out more about me at ReikiOasis.com. And let's do astrology. Mercury is back in Virgo. Mercury, communication. Happy autocorrect season to all who celebrate. And may you find every error and correct every detail that is presented to you with glee over the next few weeks. Mercury will clear retrograde shadow today, September 12th at 4 degrees Virgo. And you're going to be filled with brilliant solutions and the very, very, very best approach ever to whatever, right? So it's a great week to get your Virgo on. And for all my Virgo people out there, yay, yippee for you. We need everybody. So with both Mercury and Venus coming out of retrograde, we can expect communication and relationship matters to gradually improve. And this period is ideal for resolving misunderstandings, reassessing personal goals, and clearing up any confusion from the recent weeks. Also today, we have the Sun square Big Daddy Jupiter, the planet of expansion. The Sun represents the core of who we are, right? And this alignment might have us feeling that something's getting ready to expand within us, tension maybe bubbling. So it's a good time to put your desires out in the universe. I have a lot of people coming to me going, Loretta, I just sort of, I don't know, I feel kind of like anxious, or what's going to happen? We're, are we blowing up? What's happening? And just be aware of the fact that sometimes you just have to take care of your feelings, right? You have them, and your feelings don't always know the facts. And then next week, something big I got to mention, somewhere around there, September 17th to the 18th, depending on where you are on planet Earth, we have a North Node full moon in Pisces, partial lunar eclipse. Sometimes called the harvest or corn moon. It is a super moon. And welcome to the second eclipse season. Mid-September is promising earth-shattering endings. The harvest moon typically occurs right around the fall equinox and represents the end of the harvest season, abundance, culmination, that sort of thing. So it's a great time to just take a check-in with yourself. How are you doing with your goals and ambitions? Did you reap what you sowed? And do you like what you reaped? Maybe you should sow something else. It's really just kind of common sense at some level. The full moon in Pisces is doubling as a partial lunar eclipse. And I am just going to say eclipses are not your best friends. Sometimes they're brutal catalysts. And it is nature's way of hurling cosmic curveballs into your life, kind of shaking you up a little bit. If you've gotten a little bit too lackadaisical, it's going to just roll you around a little bit. And this North Node lunar eclipse in Pisces is emotional. It's in that sensitive sign, Pisces. And for some people, it might feel a bit like a tidal wave. It's going to bring deep-rooted emotional baggage up to the top. And what am I saying? You might be emotional. Take extra care of yourself. And what's that saying? Be slow to anger and quick to forgive, or something like that. We could all use a little bit of that kindness. The South Node solar eclipse coming in Libra in October 2nd is also going to be helping us shred stagnant relationship dynamics and anything that's a falseness. So false faces will be revealed. Seriously, everybody, you're not in control right now. Except of yourself. I'm not sure we're ever in control of ourselves. So there's all kinds of energies coming at us that are really forcing us to change direction, redefine priorities, and really, really, really burn the bridges to the past. Let it go. I just keep saying, let it go, and you'll find out what is still here. It's all about emerging on the other side of all of this sort of big wind that's blowing through, and pay attention to the 3 days before and after the upcoming eclipse. So that's like, start paying attention. This overall period will give you clues on what will come. And this eclipse season, by the way, we had the first round of eclipses this year, starting around March 10th, when we had a new moon in Pisces. Now we have a full moon in Pisces. And so just understand that you're going to be cleaning some things up. Also, really pay attention to this eclipse, because this eclipse is on the Pisces Virgo axis, and it's going to give us a glimpse into eclipse season of next year, 2025. Oh boy, Loretta. Right. So we have some overarching themes for this week. We have service and sacrifice. The sun in Virgo opposing the full moon in Pisces is highlighting themes of martyrdom and boundaries. So it's time to find balance between giving to others and protecting your own energy. Another theme is shocking revelations. Uranus retrograde in Taurus adds an electric, unsettling vibe, shaking up routines and priorities, and you may experience sudden realizations about your life and how you've internally processed or not processed change. And the lastly is spiritual insights. It's really heightened intuition time with Neptune retrograde in Pisces. You may be getting dreams, messages, intuitive hits, guidance, and pay attention to those subtle things. I think as we move forward, we're all becoming a little bit more aware and seeking the answers, from higher sources or ourself is always a good way to go. So with that astrology, make sure you take care of yourself. And when I say take care of yourself, I mean, do what you need to do, like go get a massage, make sure you get outside, and go to see the Apple Cup. It's time to do things like that, fun things with family. So I have a wonderful guest today. For 6 minutes, Wisconsin husband, farmer, and writer, Philip Hasheider, was dead. Yep, he met all the requirements: heart not beating, lungs not breathing, skin and ashen color turning blue. He was lifeless, flat on the floor. In his book, 6 Minutes in Eternity, a memoir, he tells the story of his near-death experience, including the events that led up to it and what he experienced during the time away from his body. And through no request or fault of his own, he suddenly, in an instant, became an expert on dying. And he's going to talk to us all about it. Welcome to the show, Philip. I'm so grateful and glad that you are here. Are you there, Philip? Oh, okay. Hang on just a second. We're having a little bit of technical difficulties. Yeah.
I'm sending it to him again to see.
Okay.
Philip, you can hear us though too, right?
Philip? Okay.
Well, why don't you, Loretta, chat a little bit about the book?
Yeah, let me just chat just a little bit, and we will see what we can do to get him back and find out what we're doing. Anyway, his book, 6 Minutes in Eternity. Here's the cover.
Yep.
The beautiful, beautiful sunrise, sunset on it. And like I said, he had a near-death experience. And he had in his book, which, by the way, is a really great read. Philip has written all kinds of books. He's written books about farming and history and things like that. And he is an excellent author. And he talks about everything that led up to his experience, as well as what happened during the experience, and also what happened after that.
Looks like he's checked back in. Let's try to add him back on the old Zoom here.
Okay.
And there he is.
There we go.
Sorry, there was some glitch over here.
That's okay. Not a big deal.
But your beautiful, beautiful assistant, your technology expert, helped you. Thanks, Mary.
Yes, she did. Yes, she did.
Aw.
Yes, she did. I would not be the same person without her.
I see that. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah. So Philip, I was telling people a little bit about your book. I would love for you just to tell us your story. Tell us what happened.
Well, thank you, Loretta. As you mentioned, I live on a farm in south central Wisconsin, and we pasture graze beef. So our farm is all in grass, and that becomes part of my story, especially at the beginning, because as you mentioned, it was an early October morning, at 11 o'clock when I collapsed and became an expert on dying, but also I became an expert on hope. And that has been my sustaining theme. I'm going to take you all along with me out into our pasture because that's where it all starts that morning. Every morning I would go out and check our cattle and make sure everything was fine. That morning I walked out and something was different. I got no more than 300 feet from the group, and one of them jumped up, saw me coming, looked at me, perked up her ears, and for a moment just stood there and then took off running across the field and went about 600 feet, stopped and looked back at me. Well, that got everybody else excited, and they all got up, looked at me, and after a moment, they all took off and joined the other one. And I thought, well, that's really unusual because it didn't happen the morning before. But that morning, something happened. Well, I had seen what I needed to see, that there was nobody that needed attention. So I turned around and I walked back towards our house, out of the pasture. Well, that morning I had scheduled to have our car's tires changed. And usually I would go in when I went into town, which was 12 miles from our farm. I would also go in for an exercise session at our local hospital's fitness rehab. And I had been doing that for 6-7 months. Well, I got into town, and instead of turning right to get my tires changed, I realized I had plenty of time to get a full exercise session in. So I turned left, and I went to our hospital's fitness rehab center and went downstairs, changed, came back up, said hi to the 5 people that were in the room, and did 20, well, I stretched in that, and then I went and did my 20 arm curls. And in one moment, I was standing next to the machine after I got finished, and I was looking at my forearms because both of them were tingling. And the next moment, I was in a completely different dimension. I was not on our farm anymore. And I could say, trying to explain things that I saw in that dimension in using human words has been a real challenge. However, I think what I say will resonate with enough people's language skills to understand. I was floating. I was floating on something I would refer to as a raft. And I was floating not on water, but I was floating on energetic waves that were coming towards me. And interestingly, they were passing through me. And I couldn't understand because I realized I had an outline of the body I had here, but I did not have my body. I thought, well, this is really something. But I couldn't understand it at that moment. And so I looked up, and in front of me, what I saw, I can best explain as this gigantic golden yellow sphere that filled up the whole space in front of me. And from it were coming these energetic waves all over and passing out behind me. And these were the same waves that were enfolding me and asking me to merge with it. Well, I looked again, and what I saw were little sparks of light shooting out all over the surface of this golden orb. And at that moment, I realized, I knew that what I was seeing was what I'll call the source of all creation, the divine creator, the God essence, if you want to put a name to it. And I knew somehow that this is where I had originated from. Well, I decided to see what else was around me. So I turned to look. And what I can explain or describe is an infinite multitude of dimensions, universes, suspended out in this eternal space. I use an analogy which helps me understand it. If you take our universe that we understand here, and all the distance and light years and the planets and everything else, stars, that's all in it, and you compress it down to a single sheet of paper, and then you suspend it out here in this eternal space, and then put another one right next to it. Not necessarily ours, but another one and another one. And you keep doing this as far as you can imagine into infinity. Now, do that with all directions as we understand directions: up, down, forward, backwards, sideways, crossways. All of these universes, dimensions, had a filament that reached up and attached itself to a spider web-like matrix that encompassed this whole golden yellow sphere, which was pulsing love and welcome and acceptance into each one of these universes. Well, it was not something that scared me, because it felt so welcoming that, oh, why would I ever want to leave this place? So I decided to look behind me. It's kind of like going on a long trip and you forget to take the back roads. So I thought I would take a look behind me to see what was there, as we understand front and back. Well, what I saw was infinity, because the emulsion of eternity acted like a magnifying glass that allowed me to see as far as you could possibly see. And the farther I looked, the clearer things became. I can't explain the mechanics of that, but that's what happened to me. And it was a way in which I was looking at things with a different lens that the low wattage of my human eyes here could never possibly see. All this time that I was there were, back at the fitness center, a dozen EMTs and hospital staff furiously working to revive me. Well, I couldn't tell them not to bother, because I was really pleased with where I was. I couldn't call them and say, it's okay if you don't revive me. You don't have to feel bad, because I'm pretty happy where I am. But then, in less than a blink of an eye, I returned here. I returned from the longest trip I'd ever taken in 6 minutes. And I returned with the memory of a vivid experience in another dimension. And still on top of all of that, it would be another 8 months before I would understand why I returned, or be given the answer as to why I returned. That was one of the questions I had initially, as to why did I collapse at that hospital's fitness center, in that room, at that particular moment, in that particular space where there was so much help available, rather than 1 hour earlier when I was out in our farm's pasture looking at our beef cattle. Now, I've since come to understand that those cattle must have realized they were looking at a ghost. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. But I did not pick up on that morning, and it took me a long time to really understand what But there's more to the whole episode, but that's brief for what I think you're going to want. You can ask more if you wish, but that's the sum of what happened, and it's the effects of that I have been working to understand.
Yes. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for that, Philip. That's actually a really great synopsis of what happened. And we are actually going to take a station break, so that's perfectly timed. And my guest today, Philip Hasheider, 6 Minutes in Eternity, a memoir. This is Loretta Brown. And Philip kind of segued into what we're going to talk about. So don't go away. When we come back, we're going to actually talk more about it. The 6 minutes to me is fascinating. Like, I do have a lot of questions about that, but also really the aftermath of that is, I want to hear about that too, because you do write about that in your book. I think it's really, really important. And I'm just going to say this. You're now an expert on hope and dying. Yeah. There we go. So, Miss Loretta Brown, we're going to take a little station break. We'll be right back.
Cool. All clear. Energy is powerful. It's all around us, mysterious, full of potential. Directing positive, healing energy to raise your vibrational rate through Reiki can change your life. Reiki Master Loretta Brown has relieved stress, sadness, anger, and even helped clients lose weight, stop smoking, and end sleep disorders. Worldwide, people have sought out Reiki Oasis. If you want help with your dis-ease, visit ReikiOasis.com. Harness life's energy. Visit ReikiOasis.com today.
Over the years, you've brought them into your home. You were prescribed opioids after the C-section and after Dad's back injury. They helped when you were in pain, and you held on to them just in case. But did you know holding on to unused opioids puts your family at risk? Trouble with opioids can start at home with unused medicines such as pills, patches, and syrups. You can remove the risk and protect your family. Find out how at www.fda.gov/drug disposal.
It's time that you are heard, and I don't mean in just a conversation. I mean really heard. Imagine hosting your very own radio program on Alternative Talk 1150. Talk about being heard. Call 425-653-1150 right now to learn how affordable it can be to host your own radio show. Time slots are going fast, so take hold of this chance by dialing 425-653-1150. Alternative Talk, we have an opportunity waiting just for you.
Self-help, healing, spirituality, and more on Alternative Talk 1150.
Ready to come back? Sorry, interrupt. We got to bring back. All right.
Still, I thought it was odd. There was no sign of God just to usher me in. Then a voice from above sugar-coated with love.
That's the best song, Betty. You just do it. Just perfect. Anyway, welcome back to the original Loretta Brown Show with my guest, Philip Hasheider, author of 6 Minutes in Eternity. Just a reminder, these shows are archived and you can download them for free at the archives for KKNW 1150 AM, the original Loretta Brown Show. We're also on iTunes, Podcast One, Spotify, X, Megaphone, YouTube. I'm sure I left somebody out, but you get the idea. The shows are all over the place. So please go and listen to this again, and go get Philip's book right now. Just order it during the show and you'll get an extra gold star for that. So Philip, we were talking during the break. I kind of want to jump back in there. You know, you had this experience, which is, in my opinion, I can tell by talking to you, is very clear. Like, you know how sometimes our memory doesn't remember things, but this is very clear. Yes.
Yes, it is. Thank you for bringing the point up, because I've thought about it a lot. My experience, which happened roughly 9 years ago, is as vivid to me today as it was when it happened.
Yes.
Now, when I talk with groups, I try to explain it this way. We all have dreams. I'm sure everyone has dreams. And in the morning when we wake up, we may remember portions of it or snippets of it or something like that. But we never remember the whole thing, at least I never do. So I think dreams have a way of dissipating and dissolving into the air, and that we don't really quite grasp it. But the interesting thing is that my experience has never changed. Anytime I sit and think about it, nothing has changed.
Yeah.
And how could that be? Well, it has to be because it's true. It's what I did experience. Yeah. And that's the best way that I can explain it. So as we go on, and it's important that I mention this, I think we all have guides. Some people may call them angels. I think these guides are here to help us. I don't think they interfere with us. I think they offer us choices. And specifically, I had a choice that morning to turn right and get my car tires changed, or turn left and go to what eventually became an area where I could get assistance.
Yeah.
Had I collapsed at the tire place, I have no idea if I would be here talking to you. You can't measure something that doesn't happen, but you can with what does happen. So understanding that I was at the right place at the right time was something that really had me question why it was there. And that was the answer I was given 8 months later. Not immediately, but it was. So we have choice, basically.
Right. Yeah, we have choices. By the way, part of your story, like the cows, to me is like, the cows running away, very telling. Of course, at that time, you didn't have any idea why they're running away, like what's going on to the cows, right? But the other part of that, you could have had that happen anywhere, but it was perfectly timed to where you were in the right place with lots of people around that could jump in and take over, do what they needed to do. When you were dead during that 6 minutes, right? When you were out of the body, might be a better way of saying that, right? You saw this bright light. You felt like you were floating in a raft, I'll say, and you saw parallel timeline. I'm fascinated by that. But did you hear voices? Did you, there's a lot of things that people share when they have near-death experiences, which are called MDEs for the listener, right? And lots of times people are like, well, I went through a tunnel and everybody I ever knew was there. And there was angels or, whatever the deal it is. But you didn't have any of that. Or you did?
No, what I did hear were tones.
Okay.
If you can, we're used to a certain wavelength of decibels with our hearing here. Once in that dimension, everything is infinite. So you have an infinite number of tones, and that's what I kept hearing, was this modulating tones going up and down, almost like a beacon, drawing in other entities like me who just showed up for some reason. But considering coming from all these infinite universes and dimensions. So it's like a homing beacon, this sphere. And to me, that's where the sound, the modulating sounds, the tones were coming from. Now, the other thing I've realized in connection with this is that we are receptors of sound in our ears. Music is transmitted through energy and through a code in airwaves, and it comes into a a box here that translates it into something we can hear. That's what happened. Everything there is in vibration. To come here, for me to understand it, it had to transport itself through different, well, the emulsion of dimensions and eternity to come here and enter my mind or my ears and translate that energetic information into a language that I can understand. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to say anything. So that's why I know that what I experienced is true, because it's unique to me. Now, I referred to the guides before, and this was one night sometime later, I just simply asked, well, was any of this true? Because I had been invited to talk to the emergency room nurses after the director had heard what had transpired and what my experience was. And that was one of the questions. Well, could you think that you dreamt it? Well, yeah, sure. You can dream anything up you want. But I couldn't possibly imagine that the things I experienced in that dimension, if they didn't happen. And so when I was just sitting by myself, I just said out loud, was any of that true? And all I got was this message that said, yes, that was true. That to me was so important because I had been taught since I was a kid, my parents always tell the truth. So it was important for me to know that I was not being deceived. And in turn, that I was not then deceiving myself. And when I started writing out my thoughts about it, I wanted to make darn sure I was not going to deceive somebody else with a false narrative. Yeah. And I sat with that for quite a while because I needed to know that it was true. And at this point, I can go back and relive that whole thing just by walking down the road or out in our field. It's always with me, which is fine. But I can see this dimension anytime I'm looking at what we have here, because it's always out here in the background. It doesn't come in and invade me, but it's always there. And so I know that we can travel time and space because I did it. And not that and so I guess that does make me an expert in some ways, but and that is the hope that I am trying to explain to people, that there is something more than what we have here, and that we should enjoy what we have here, but this is not the end.
Yeah, and I want you to fill in a little gap, because you said that it took about 8 months for you to find your why, which sounds to me like it's the message of hope.
Well, yes.
Okay.
I struggled with understanding why. The why. Why there? Why then? Why were all these people available? And that took a long time, and it happened. I got the answer in the middle of the night. I had been struggling physically because I was tired all the time, and that was because of medications. But I went down to breakfast one morning, and I plopped myself in the chair at the opposite end of the table from Mary, my wife, who was sitting there with a notepad in her hand, and I just didn't pay attention to that either. And she finally let me settle in, and she said, well, do you want to hear what you said last night? And I said, well, I didn't hear anything. I didn't say anything. So yeah, sure. And she said, you did. And I wrote it down. I said, okay, well, what did I say? Well, she said you sat up in the bed and you were mumbling to yourself, and I couldn't understand what you were talking about. And then all of a sudden, you stopped and you shook your head from side to side. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. And she said, well, what don't you believe? And I said, the reason I came back. And she said, well, why did you come back? And she said, I told her, I was told that I was supposed to be a conduit of hope for those who don't have any and those who don't think there is any. And after she said that, I instantly knew that was the reason that I was at that room at that particular point in time, and not out in our farm's pasture where nobody would find me for 6 hours, because she had a full-time job, so she was away from the farm. So that was a little bit unnerving, because it seemed like a big responsibility for something I hadn't asked for in the first place. And so that's what it is, and I've accepted that. And it's not my full-time job, but it's what I do when someone wants to ask about something, or someone's feeling depressed. It's tough to go into a short summary of what happened with that person, but just an encouragement every day.
Yeah.
So that was the answer, and that made so much sense to me.
I'm so curious about what you just said, because as you describe your 6 minutes and everything that you experienced, that message is not said in that 6 minutes. It's something that came during your dream space about 8 months later, probably from your guides. But I have another question for you, because I was thinking about this reading your book. You very beautifully, like really, your description of this 6 minutes is one of the best descriptions I've ever read. And I was telling you before the show, I've had my own near-death experiences, and I've talked to a lot of people about it. And number one, they're all unique and individual, but you have so many details. And then when you come back to your body, you have a lapse of an 8-hour period of time. And I have, maybe you can answer this, maybe you can't. Where were you during that 8 hours? Like, you know what I'm asking? Yeah, go ahead.
I was in an ambulance. I was, actually, I was on the floor. I was in an ambulance, and then I was in a hospital ER room when I finally, best I can say, is phased back in and realized that I was here and not there. And things were so confusing at that point. There is this 8-hour gap when I have absolutely no memory of what happened, from the time I collapsed until roughly 8 o'clock that night, which was interesting, because the first thing I remember seeing when I woke up, well, I was awake, but I was not awake for me, was looking at the clock, and it said 8 o'clock. And I said, well, that can't be possible. And somebody asked, well, why not? I said, well, time doesn't run backwards, at least not here. And there was this silence, and this person said, well, it's 8 o'clock at night. And I said, oh. So I got very quiet, because I couldn't make any sense of it. It's what I refer to as my interdimensional confusion. Because I had this, just moments before, even though it was 8 hours, just moments before, I had this beautiful experience where I was in this wonderful area, this dimension, in these waves. Next thing, I'm lying here on this gurney, looking at my feet, and my own wife Mary is there rubbing my feet. I had no idea what she was doing there. And then I looked to my left, and here was our son and our daughter. Couldn't figure out what they were doing here. Yeah. And somebody kept asking me irritating questions. And
like, just, how you feeling? That kind of thing.
Yeah. What day is it? I mean, and coming out later. Okay, a quick version. About 4 months, 5 months later, after all of this, I was trying to understand why. So I went back, and I was able to interview the all of the people that had a hand in saving me. There were about 11 EMTs, and there were 5 hospital staff. So they were all willing to sit and talk with me about that. What was interesting about those interviews, and I taped them, they allowed me to record them so I could write it out later. They asked me, each one of them knew specifically what they were doing. They didn't know what the person next to them was doing, but they were so focused that they could understand what was going on. So I was trying to understand this 8 hours and what happened. And yeah, they said, once I got in the ambulance, they said, the guy who was monitoring me said, yeah, you were talking, you were joking. My wife said I was talking and joking. I have no idea what any of that was. So basically, that 8 hours is gone, but I can live with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say you gained some years there, so maybe that's all right, right? A few hours. I find that fascinating and very curious. Yeah, you're laughing and telling jokes, Philip, yeah. I just came back from the dead. I think I'll tell some jokes. Yeah, that sounds good.
I'm
Right?
not a stand-up comic.
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
One thing I did learn from all of this is that our bodies are more than the sum of its parts. And by that I mean, when I was standing next to the arm curl machine, I had all the body parts that I had when I was moments later lying down dead on the floor, except one thing. It was that little spark, that inner essence, the soul, if you will. That's where I was. And then once they restarted my heart, I had to come back. So I know there is this interchange between dimensions and time travel and whatever human words you want to use to express that. So yeah, it's in a way that's really comforting to me, because I look at it now as we come here to embody in a physical form so that we can enjoy, experience this lower dimension in a tactile way, in an emotional way, in whatever way you want to express your life here. We can't do that if I was still that little spark. Yeah, we could come here and visit, and I think that's what we recognize as angels or guides or whatever you want to call it. We could experience this dimension just by coming as that little energetic form, but not in the same way as having a body. So at some point in 1951, I made the decision to come on the off-ramp, if you will, of this energetic superhighway. And I came down into this lower dimension to experience it. I was born with my parents. I was raised by them. I've now lived roughly 73 years of this existence. And I know that when my body uses up all its energy, all its whatever, I will leave this body and I will get back onto that energetic on-ramp, and I'm going to keep going until my next experience. Now, I don't know what that is yet until I actually have it. But that is the whole that I'm trying to explain to people, is that this is not the end. This is just a way station for us to experience. We're going to keep going onto our next experience forever, whatever you consider eternity to be. And what could be better than that? There is no destruction of our inner essence, our soul. Yeah, our body's going to drop off, but that's happened to a lot of other people too. But they are all going on to their next experience and have been. So there is hope that there is something beyond this, because I've seen it. And okay, people don't have to believe me, That's their choice. But all I can say is, when it happens, you will know.
I actually think that's a really important message. Hope, right? Especially also because, I always look at the world as being so divisive right now, and there's a lot of judgment, right? And this idea that when you leave this body and go to the other side, like you said, there's no destruction. There's no burning forever, someplace.
There's no punishment.
Right.
There is no punishment.
Yeah.
There is only love. And go ahead.
I was going to say, were you a religious or spiritual person before this, or would you
More
say
spiritual than religion?
Okay.
Yeah.
And this experience, and I have so many questions, we're not going to have time, I can already tell. But how did this change you? Like, I can tell it changed you. Something like you said, I have this sense you have this awareness of this infinity that you didn't have before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I used to think about eternity and infinity before that, but it was more in an abstract way. Having experienced it changes everything for me.
Yeah.
Which, and I probably need to say this, it changed the relationship between me and my wife.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in a good way. Now, we in the last year, we found that there's research showing that a person who has an NDE like me, and a spouse or partner, friend or family member who does not have one, that for the married couples, the divorce rate is 70 to 80%. And that's
Wow.
because one person can't possibly understand what the other person experienced. Things become less important. Because I had an NDE does not give me a free pass here. I still have to pay the bills. I still have to work. Yeah, well, it's only for a little while, so you just put up with it. But you
I don't know, Philip. I'm already thinking. Let's see. I could pay bills and clean house, or I could go.
But you don't get any coffee.
That's right. Okay. I'm gonna have coffee and pie. Right. I only came here for the pie. Anyway.
Energetically, you can have it. Yes.
Okay. In that space, and we just got a couple of minutes left, but in that space up there with that infinity, with it, I kind of get the idea that maybe these sparks, these souls, were coming and going, and they're coming from infinity and then going back out to infinity, or going to other timelines. I don't know if you said timelines, but
well, I believe that's true.
Yeah.
My understanding now, my experience has never changed, but my understanding of it has evolved as I get more into it. Those sparks that I mentioned are us. At one point, one of us, you were there, everyone who listens to this or sees it, we all came from that God essence. And we all carry the DNA of that divine creator, the source of all creation, whatever you want to call it. We all carry that DNA, and we're carrying it here with us now. Which, back to your question or point about the divisiveness, is that that's a human construct.
Yeah.
That is not the way it is in that dimension. And we can change that here by changing our attitudes.
Yeah.
But ego comes in the way, money comes in the way. So there's all these low vibration things that serve as roadblocks for us to get to.
Well, we are at the end of our time. That felt like 3 minutes, Philip. I didn't get to any of my 57 questions. And my guest today, Philip Hasheider. Yeah, you guys, you and your wife can come over for dinner anytime at my place. 6 minutes in eternity, a memoir, and final last words. Where can people find you, Philip?
You on Facebook at phasheider.com or Hasheider Books, really. And I have an email at philiphasheiderbooks@gmail.com. If they're interested.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being on the show. And thanks to all that is, and your guides and angels, and whatever that greater source is, God, Goddess, whatever, that you're here. Your message is going all around the world, and I can see it spreading even further. So thank you so much for that message of hope.